thought I would tell a story about my past that I don't think I've ever told in public before. Those of you who know me know that my path into politics was a surprising one. It wasn't where I expected to land. I had this dream as a adolescent of becoming a math professor when I grew up, and that peculiar dream actually came true. But I saw something happen that pushed me in a different direction. What I saw was the installation of a president of the United States, notwithstanding the preference of the plurality in that election for a different candidate. The installation, by the way, of a president who was reckless and dangerous with an obvious disregard for facts and data and common sense values of human dignity. And that was a moment that really awakened me. That president obviously was George W. Bush, and history has a habit of repeating itself. And as I was studying mathematics, preparing for that election and reading about it, I was a little ambivalent about that election. I'm a progressive, and progressives had a lot of concerns, frankly, about some of the things that had happened during the course of the Clinton presidency around the so-called welfare reform bill and a crime bill, and see the vice president from that administration, who had been a cheerleader for the North American Free Trade Agreement, up for the office of president was kind of a little bit discouraging and galling, and I definitely wanted him to win, but I wasn't so sure that I was comfortable with that situation. And so I thought that because I at the time was living in a state that was not going to have a competitive election, I was living in a state then where it was clear who was going to win, I thought I'll just vote for Ralph Nader as a protest. That's how I felt on Labor Day. That's how I felt in mid-September. And then in October, as it was clear the election was going to be really, really close, and it was clear that Florida was going to be a state that was going to be decisive, possibly in that election, and Nader started campaigning especially hard in Florida, as if his goal was to throw the election from one candidate to the other. And I got so upset that I decided to cast a protest vote against Ralph Nader for Al Gore. Which I did. And that seems like a very strange way to register your preferences. Particularly a complex set of ranked preferences you might have in a highly important and sensitive election. And the outcome of that election and the conduct of the Bush administration and the lying about the war in Iraq, all of that led me into politics. And I occasionally have thought during the course of the intervening time that weird, convoluted anecdote of my bizarre process by which I figured out who to vote for in a situation where there wasn't quite the perfect candidate, but I wanted to make some strategic decisions and maybe send some messages to. That was a pretty strong indication that we ought to have a better voting system that better registers our actual preferences and enables our preferences to be reflected in who governs our country. Now here we are in 2018 in Illinois, and we find ourselves with a pretty interesting ranked choice voting eligible election for governor in less than 3 weeks. Imagine yourself to be a kind of traditional Republican. Imagine yourself to be motivated by the values that drive a lot of today's Republican Party, which is to say equal measures of antipathy both to legalized abortion and also to labor unions. You want to figure out who to go vote for governor of Illinois, who's going to both ban abortion and also crush labor unions. That's what you want to do. You've got yourself a problem on your hands. Because you have a Republican candidate for governor who is desperate to crush labor unions, but is a little squishy on the abortion issue. You have the conservative candidate for governor who is desperate to ban abortions in all circumstances, but is a little squishy on the labor issue. And what do you do? And then you're going to find, I think, a tremendous number of people who share this set of policy views showing up to vote, trying to make a strategic decision about what vote might express which view best, what vote might be strategically best based upon a complicated set of considerations. It's not really a system that's designed to actually empower the voter and reflect the true preferences of the voter in a way that's coherent, in a way that's actually going to result in government outcomes. And there's one other anecdote that comes to mind. So here in Illinois, there's a gentleman by the name of Mike Madigan, who's only been speaker for all but 2 of the years since 1983. So was made Speaker of the House in 1983 and served in that role since, with the exception of 2 years. He's a Irish machine politician of the exceedingly old school, representing a district on the southwest side that is increasingly out of step with his political approach. And by the way, the district whose basic population has transformed, a district that is now very immigrant heavy, a district with an enormous Latino population. And in the last election, he ran in the primary. Well, if you read the newspapers, you would hear that he ran in the primary against a candidate by the name of Jason Gonzalez, a very well-funded candidate trying to defeat him in that primary. But if you actually looked at the ballot, there were not 2 candidates, but 4. Because Mike Madigan, trying to hold on to his seat, deployed an old trick of the Democratic machine here in Chicago and found a couple other candidates whose names indicated that they might be of the same ethnic or racial or national background as his opponent to try to figure out how to dilute that vote. A strategy that would be completely without any value whatsoever if we had a system of ranked choice voting. It's a strategy specifically designed to push down and silence a population, a strategy that just does not work in a world of ranked choice voting. So we have all these different examples in mind, and so I at one point not too long ago introduced legislation in the Illinois Senate to create a system of ranked choice voting. And if you think about how the power structures operate, who benefits from the current system, and what would happen if we were to change the system, it will not be too surprising that bill did not go very far. So that bill got assigned to a committee, didn't get assigned to a committee on like, hey, let's figure out democracy for the people. Didn't get assigned to a committee on inclusion of marginalized voices. Strangely, there is no such committee in the Illinois Senate. We already solved those problems apparently. We've got to work on the other stuff, like, well, never mind. He got assigned to the executive committee, which is a committee that tends to be populated by kind of senior people who've demonstrated a certain amount of loyalty to the existing system. And then once it got to that committee, it got assigned to a subcommittee. Now, in the Illinois General Assembly, you assign bills to subcommittees because subcommittees don't meet. And it's very difficult to pass a bill out of the subcommittee if the subcommittee never meets. And I made a really radical request. I was like, okay, cool, I get it. We're not gonna have a vote. We're not gonna get this bill out of the subcommittee. I understand. I understand. I can read these tea leaves. They're very big, clear tea leaves. But could we just have a hearing? Could we just have a little conversation about it? Just a public discussion with no vote to enable people to come to Springfield and talk about this issue and hopefully begin a process of education? Nope. We didn't even get that. We didn't even get that. And so I think it's not hard to figure out why that might be. I think it's not hard to figure out who benefits from the current system and why the people who benefit from the current system aren't jumping up and down, excited about the opportunity of changing that system. And so I wanted to think of a few instances where we had that